Well, hello, that's me again. Today is the 1st of December, it's Thursday, and it has been just 48 hours since my last video to you, and me talking about the fact that most important events are actually happening, and not necessarily just on the battlefields in Ukraine, and we will touch on it today, but actually what is surrounding it, which is way more important. And I'm constantly on the record, I'm constantly stress this fact that the struggle is titanic, it's global in its nature. And the result of, for example, Russia withdrawing from the consultations on the START, Strategic Arms Limitations Treaty, with the United States, it was immediate, well, pretty much panic, actually, from the State Department and from Washington, D.C. in general, and obviously they desperately want that. They actually open text, so to speak, they directly admitted it, that they're ready, to resume whenever Russia is ready. But the fact is, it takes two to tango, and once you begin to look at yesterday's response by Mrs. Zakharova and Russian Foreign Ministry, it becomes absolutely clear that Russia really is kind of pretty much nonchalant about this whole thing, about the START, and you know what, Russia doesn't really need START. I already elaborated on this issue. But let's see what were the conditions which Moscow named in order to start, continue consultations on START with the United States. Obviously, Washington must stop arming Kyiv first, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman says. Speaking in a live interview on radio Sputnik, Maria Zakharova said the U.S. intends to supply even more weapons to the conflict region in which the Russian Federation is directly involved. That is, they will supply all these weapons, they will encourage the Kyiv regime to cause even more bloodshed, they will allocate money for extremist activities that are carried out under the auspices of these delusional people in the Ukrainian presidency, and we will sit with them at the same table, discuss issues of mutual security with them, including those in their interest. That was the question. Of course not. And again, I want to stress, this is what escalation, dominance, and actually winning the arms race means. Russia doesn't really need START per se, if we talk about the real conflict, God forbids, of course. Russia, in terms of strategic arms, is so beyond now reach of the United States. I cannot emphasize enough how huge the lag is. The United States has nothing in terms of hypersonic weaponry. It has nothing in terms of anything even remotely approaching capabilities of RS-28 Sarmat, which has already stated in serial production, and we're talking about new physical principle weapons. So in this case, Russia can sit back and just observe how the United States will convulse, so to speak, in this whole situation. And of course, if they want to fulfill those conditions, stop arming Kyiv, sure, Russia will talk to them. If not, well, too bad, as I already stated. Russia could be and can afford to be nonchalant about it. So, this was very important, and this is extremely important. This is what defines actually present situation in relations between Russia and the combined West, and combined West is getting really desperate. I'm not talking just about economy. I am on the record, and you can send me whatever the number of the hate mails or hateful comments, but the point is Europe will be reduced to the economic pipsqueak, and the preservation of whatever will be left of industries in Europe. It's up to European politicians and European population, which basically elects them. And that gets us to the next point, because I'm frankly getting tired already. I said it many times before. I'm getting tired of people saying, oh, but you know what, we poor Europeans, we have been basically taken hostage by the United States, which is true, actually, in some sense. But you know what? You vote for those people. Hello? So, and here is the demonstration. It's an Exhibit A, and I already spoke about Germany and how it begins to look, not very nicely, but look what they do. They basically, the whole Bundestag, forget it, it's not like some creeps, which from the government. No, it's legislature. And Bundestag resolution says the label obviously fits the 1930 famine Kiev calls Holodomor. Holodomor is, of course, the central, at the core of the Ukrainian very short statehood mythology, and it's all revolves around the fact that Stalin and his clique somehow, created Holodomor in order to, starve out the population of Ukraine. The fact that there were millions of Russians in Russian territories who died as the result of the climate-driven tragedy obviously is of no concern for the so-called Western, basically historians, quote unquote. I didn't see any good historians as of lately. But look what the resolution adopted by Bundestag says. According to the resolution, in the winter of 1932-1933 alone, 3.5 million people starved to death in the Ukraine, while millions of people lost their lives as a result of politically induced famines in other parts of the USSR. The authors acknowledge they insist the famine in Ukraine was a Soviet project to destroy the Ukrainian way of life, language, and culture. Well, at this stage, as you might understand, this is not just some those batshit crazy Annalena Baerbock or stupid cockle Scholz, who try to pretend that, they represent the will of German people. No, this is Bundestag, and Bundestag is elected by Germans. And here you can see yourself Exhibit A, and basically justification for Russia not to be engaged with the present-day Europe. And that is why whenever I hear or read the suggestions that, oh yeah, that Eastern Europe is the part of the European civilization, no, Russia is not the part of the present Europe. And present Europe, including majority of population, I again say it openly, try to prove me otherwise. I'm not saying that all Europeans are Russophobic. No, that would be, of course, very unjust to say that and paint that with the, broad brush. But huge majority of the Europeans, they hate Russian gods. I'm sorry, guys. And that is why they elect people who basically do what they do. And you think, so this is the end of it? No, we can go further. But here we can at least explain the fact why France, this great, super duper pooper country, wants to start their work on the creating of the special tribunal in regards to Russia's, war crimes in Ukraine. So this was announced by the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of France, but at least unlike with the Germany, which have always hated Russians, we can state that French, who also do not like Russians, to put it mildly, at least here we can understand why it is being done, because obviously France have been thrown out of Sahel, or Sahel, so to speak, is the region in the immediate sub-Saharan Africa, and especially Mali, which France was continuing to basically exploit, and doing this neo-colonialism thing. And guess what? Russians played a crucial role in kicking French out of there, to the huge, relief and applause from the African nations there, especially Mali. And guess what? France is not happy. And of course, well, what should they do? Of course, they have to participate in the, just condemning Russia on any kind of levels, including the creation of this stupid tribunal, because tribunals are established by the victors. And here's the issue. The combined West is not a victor, it's a loser, actually, in pretty much all kind of the broader sense, across the board, so to speak, economically, militarily. And at this stage, even the masters of the spin in the West cannot deny reality anymore. Evidently, it's still not there with France. They still believe this own bullshit, and they believe that they're such a great nation, which they are not. But you know what can I say? And we can take a look at what is going on now, and you can listen also to my me participating today with the RT on the crosstalk, specifically about the military situation. And here's the chief of the Russian foreign intelligence, Mr. Narishkin. He states that SVR, the Service of the External Intelligence, it's basically Russian CIA, if you wish, and he is the chief of it, and it's one of the best intelligence services in the world, and he's talking about that Poland now is in a full-blown mode of accelerating the preparation to the annexation of the Ukrainian lands. We know what those lands are. They are those Kresy that primarily Western Ukraine, this Lvov area. So, yeah, it's the fact. We know Poland will get it now. Obviously, how they will deal with this, it will be completely different story. But there is another interesting situation because it is going to be there not under auspices of NATO, but it will shake the NATO, whatever is left of it, because it's primarily political and money laundering organization. So that will be interesting to observe from the point of view of international law and European security. Obviously, Sergei Lavrov, the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Russia, today stated that there could be no European security without participation of Russia and Belarus. But of course, European leaders, as you can see yourself, they don't understand this, or rather they understand, but they are completely either blackmailed or just, genuine articles in believing onto this transatlanticism. And so what can I say? It's their choice, but Russia has nothing to do with modern European civilization. Because, well, you know what kind of laws Russia, just basically adopts, including, for example, the prohibition of the alternative lifestyle propaganda. It protects children. Their family is written in Russian constitution as the union between man and woman. And so Russia is a walking anathema for modern West, and that is why there could be no any kind of arrangement, be that on the security level, until Russia completely destroys Ukraine, and then basically they admit themselves. NATO, Stoltenberg, the guy is an idiot, but still, he admits, he understands it, that once Russia wraps up with the Ukraine, that will be the end of the West as we know it. And there is a lot which is riding on that, not Ukraine only. And that is why I constantly stress that Ukraine is just one of the fronts, a larger sense. So, and when you look at this, you begin to understand that we are in the middle of this gigantic tectonic shift, and we are already in the multipolarity, but we will see not just multipolarity. Multipolarity is the fait accompli at this stage. We will see the further degeneration and decline of the West. We're observing it every day. And so to understand what is happening and how it is happening, there was this incredible, it's not Freudian slip really, as my friend Larry Johnson states yesterday, commenting on Mrs. von der Leyen, or von der Leyen as they call her. And Larry asks, has Ukraine army been reduced by almost 50%? And that's what he writes. And it was, well, actually not yesterday, it was 2 days ago. Ursula von der Leyen did the unthinkable today. She told the truth. During a speech condemning Russia for committing war crimes, she noted in passing that 100,000 Ukrainian officers have been killed since the start of the SMO. And obviously there was a scandal. Kyiv immediately, rushed to debunk those numbers. Well, von der Leyen and her handlers, they erased this tweet, but then actually they confirmed it. And let me explain again. If you take the classic ratios, combat ratios, for example, per 1 KIA, killed in action, you usually have 3 to 4 wounded in action. So we're looking at 100,000 multiplied by what? 3/4. So on average, we're looking at around, when you add this together, around 500,000 people or casualties which have been inflicted on the armed forces of Ukraine, which are increasingly not armed forces of Ukraine. They are increasingly NATO forces there, especially Poles, huge numbers of Poles. But still, I mean, no matter what they do, they're basically the armed forces of Ukraine as such have been annihilated. You have the basically now sporadic and all kinds of the hodgepodge forces thrown together by NATO, not just by Kiev, who try to basically postpone inevitable. And that is why, for example, I do not even talk about Bakhmut, which is being now in the operational envelopment by Russians, and about to fall, and Russians take every day some villages and all kinds of the small towns every day, and nobody is really concentrating on that anymore because it is obvious that the final isn't there. But as Colonel McGregor says, that Russia has now, just along the borders of Ukraine, something on the order of 540,000 combat-ready troops, and we can only sit here and speculate if there's anticipated Russian assault or offensive will begin in the middle of December once the ground solidifies and freezes enough for the armor to move, or will it continue to be just the slaughter? And the reports from Bakhmut, for example, they are horrifying. There are basically hundreds of bodies every day left on the battlefield there, nobody even picking them up on the Ukrainian side. And that is why when I say that even Ursula von der Leyen giving at least the order of magnitude, which is hundreds of thousands killed, it's still on the very low level, very conservative estimate, because obviously the number is much larger. And I already on the record explaining how Ukrainian regime, the Kiev regime, hides the casualties, including through this vast use of this MIA, missing in action thingy, because obviously once your relative, your son or whoever is called or defined as missing in action, you're not going to get any payments. You're not going to get any benefits until, of course, body is recovered. But MIAs and then other things, and then you have it. So 500,000 of people wiped out from the order of battle. And even New York Times, this basically dangerous toilet paper, even have to admit that you can look it up yourself. It's all over the place. And to demonstrate to you what is going on there, and which of course they cannot spin this anymore. They can't. I mean, there is the systemic failure of everything, including air defense by the West, and now there are some Pentagon officials, they say they contemplate sending Patriot Pack 3 there. Sure, let them try. I mean, as if the United States didn't have enough already reputational losses, if not the outright humiliation of how ineffective and how small in quantities its weapon systems are. But going further, we can say that Izvestia, which is the reputable Russian source, and RIA News, they also quote today actually, quote the chief of the Snegiryovsk region. This was on the right bank of the Dnieper, before Russians withdrew beyond the river, that just in 1.5 months there were more than 10,000 KIAs on the Ukrainian side. And fact is, even some signs of this have been the fact that the number of the wounded in hospital, they were overflowing all over the place, not only in Nikolaev or in Odessa or Kryvyi Rog. They were just, the hospitals are absolutely stuffed with people, with the wounded or dying armed forces of Ukraine personnel. And this is the reality. And again, when people say that, oh, there's Zelensky and all that, yeah, that's correct. He's a Muppet of the West. But you have to understand that Pentagon and people who planned this whole thing since 2013, 2014, they never understood what they are dealing with. And that is why you get this information today. And again, look up your news. I don't have to sit here and be your, news narrator or TV personality explaining it to you, because basically, if you look at all those promises by Pentagon or by NATO, most of those weapon systems they promised to Ukraine are what? 2023, 2025. So will there be Ukraine in 2025? I doubt it, but hey, what do I know? But yeah, they operate on this good old proverb from the Orient that, by that time, the Shah basically will die, or the jackass will die. But you can look up this famous proverb, because you can promise anything in the future, because the person or object to which you promise anything will not exist down the road. So you know what, it's all done and void. So, and the issue of the casualties will come up pretty soon, even more, because obviously once Russians complete the situation, the envelopment and clearing the Bakhmut, it opens the whole front into the deep of Ukraine. And I don't know, will this be blitzkrieg? Possible. Russians are very good at the deep operations. You look up what deep operations are. But will they do it, or will they continue to basically exhaust? Not Ukraine. Ukraine, as such, as the state, exists only in the virtual reality. But will they continue to drain the everything arsenals from combined West? Also possible. Also possible. So what can I say? We have just wait and see. But this was the first video for this month, and I still have to stress that I do not say necessarily I support wholeheartedly, but I lean towards Colonel McGregor's estimate that these 540,000 troops, something like on the order of 1,500 tanks and armored vehicles, hundreds upon hundreds of the combat aircraft. It has to go off at some point of time, I think, even despite the fact that some of those troops are already being used for the reinforcement of the front lines. So who knows? But if it goes off, well, we'll see. For now, we have what we have, and Russia, as I already stated, she sits back and watches, because there's a lot to watch, man. And let me tell you, in my 60 years on this earth, I never saw anything like this. And believe me, I lived through the collapse of the Soviet Union, and that was tough. But what is happening right now, my gosh, it's truly global in nature. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. So, and as always, guys, those who like what I do, please support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, and subscribe to my channel. And I will be talking to you guys soon enough. So have a nice week, and I'll see you. Bye-bye.